Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Everyday people who you interact with think that Charlie Kirk deserved to die. Your child's kindergarten teacher, we found examples all throughout today and all throughout yesterday, believes that Charlie Kirk deserved to die. Your local 911 dispatcher may believe Charlie Kirk deserves to die. And these are very fringe views, right? These are very fringe, radical views that you would expect the purple-haired, pink-haired freaks in Antifa to be espousing on the side of the street during their, radical leftist lunatic protests. You don't expect kindergarten teachers and 911 dispatchers and members of our military and doctors and nurses and executives of companies, media officials to be posting these things, to be making excuses for this cold-blooded assassination that we witnessed. And when you realize that everyday people who we interact with on a daily basis in all of these spheres in society, education, health, emergency services, social services, entertainment, all of these people have now been radicalized into cheering on the assassination of somebody like Charlie Kirk. And that's when I start to reassess things and I wonder, are we too far gone as a country? Is it the radical left or is it just the left? Because these people aren't necessarily members of Antifa. They're not necessarily domestic terrorists or members of domestic terrorist organizations. Some of these people are very successful working professionals and they feel emboldened to openly post. We're not talking about a secret recording caught on camera. We're not talking about a private conversation that's secretly recorded. We're talking about people feeling bold enough to openly post that Charlie Kirk deserved to die, that Charlie Kirk had it coming, to openly mock his assassination and the imagery, the very brutal and vicious imagery associated with all of the blood coming out of his neck. I mean, we have been completely infiltrated, and society on every single level has been completely infiltrated with people who have so much intolerance for different political views that they're willing to celebrate the death of their political opponent.
YouTube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, finding Marxist revolutionaries in the ranks is an extremely important mission, and it has to be accomplished because what you're hearing about from Laura Loomer there is the effects of fifth-generation warfare on the United States of America. Thank God we still have enough free speech in this country that Laura can speak these truths, and they're worth repeating over and over because we've been warning about this in America for years, about the Marxist infiltration of America and our military. But obviously, not enough has been done to eradicate it. Not even address it, really. Heed these words from Laura. Again, I'm going to say them. Quote, "It's not just fringe Antifa freaks who are carrying out acts of political violence. Everyday people you trust, including teachers, 9/11 dispatchers, doctors, nurses, even military members and federal employees are posting that Charlie Kirk deserved to die. When professionals and educators in positions of authority feel bold enough to cheer on an assassination in the open on social media, it shows how deeply our institutions have been poisoned by leftist extremism. The Democrats don't just disagree with us, they want us dead. Don't be mistaken. There is no fringe left. Close quote. Assassination culture is a mainstream value that is celebrated by the Democrat Party platform. Close quote again. We're talking with my friend, retired soldier Dr. Chase Spears, about the effort to identify Marxist military members today. Dr. Spears is a combat veteran who served as a U.S. Army public affairs officer for 20 years, retiring from Fort Leavenworth in October of 2023. He turned down promotion to lieutenant colonel and chose to depart military service as a major who was promotable, meaning he had been selected, believing that he can serve the nation's defense more effectively in a civilian capacity. And he's done just that, folks. He is widely published in national publications and hosts a phenomenal podcast. You got to go follow this. It's called Finding Your Spine. Chase, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show.
Colonel, it is always a joy to be with you, and I really appreciate the invitation.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you're not in your car. I was worried.
Yeah, we drove fast to make sure we were home in time, but not too fast. Not too fast.
This was a late schedule, and Dr. Spears folks agreed to come on because this is critically important. And Chase, tell folks about the hashtag Revolutionaries in the ranks and the effort that's going on. I mean, Laura talked about society as a whole, those professionals, but the military is especially important. So what does that hashtag mean, and who's behind it? Not by name, but, the types of folks.
Yeah. Well, what happened, we had the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and that was a dark, dark day. It affected all of us in different ways. It affected me. I was actually in studio doing recordings for the podcast with another fellow conservative thinker when we got the news during a break between episodes. And it was like the air had been just sucked out of the room. It was really, really hard, I'll tell you, to get through recording the rest of the day. And I remember sitting up late that night processing with my wife, and we went to bed, and I woke up the very next morning and never expected what would be waiting for me in one of my inboxes. A friend of mine sent me a screen grab from an Army colonel, Junel Jeffrey, who posted a quote basically mocking Charlie Kirk, said something to the effect of, I'll just say he got what he deserved, or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. And it just absolutely throttled me. And I was just thought, military members can't be doing this. We can't have people who are actively in service to nation. They've sworn to the Constitution. They've sworn to protect us. They've sworn to defend us. We can't have that in the military. And I thought this must just be an isolated incident. One person had a horrible lapse of good judgment and typed something online. Mm-hmm. But I posted about that. And then one after another, the receipts just kept on coming in, flooding my inboxes. I am still trying to catch up. And I've been warning, kind of like Matthew Lohmeyer warned in his book, Irresistible Revolution, that there has been a growing problem of people who have a revolutionary mindset in the ranks. And I want to be very clear about what this is. This is not just you're left of center and I don't like what you have to say. The military is a cross-section of society. There are traditional liberals, there are traditional conservatives, there are people all across within that spectrum. What we're talking about here is people with a revolutionary neo-Marxist mindset who believe that there are only two types of people, oppressors and those who are oppressed. And it's the exact same playbook that we've seen in every bloody revolution in the 20th century. It's what we saw in China in 1953. It's what we saw in Russia in 1917. And the list could go on and on and on and on. Mm-hmm. And so I decided, you know what, as these come in, I'm going to have to start sharing them. There are a handful of other veterans sharing them as well. And I encouraged people, I was a few days into it, and I said, we should start marking these with hashtag revolutionaries in the ranks so that they're easier for us to share and track and kind of try to do an after action analysis on, because this is, I've known for a while, and Lohmeyer pointed out that he's known for a while. There are plenty of examples of people in the military with a hostile view of American constitutionalism. But when you have thousands, and that's coming from the Pentagon, saying they are aware of thousands of military members cheering, endorsing political assassination, that is a critical problem that cannot be ignored.
Oh yeah. I'm glad you guys made the hashtag because I was sharing them for you as I came across them, and sometimes my account doesn't show everything. As you know, we're all suppressed in various ways across some of these platforms, even X. So the hashtag is good. Now every morning I can click on that and check it, what's new on it, and share the ones that I haven't shared before because I think this is in the thousands. At this point. And that is a formidable size piece of the force.
It's shocking. When that first
Yeah.
one came in to my inbox, I thought, okay, we have one person who's, off their rocker, off their meds.
Mhm.
And then another one. I thought, okay, maybe we got somewhere in the vicinity of 5. And then they kept coming in and went from tensies to hundreds. And I haven't personally started counting. I mean, I'm tracking. I finally started keeping a list of the people who I've come across.
Mhm.
But someone I've spoke to at the Pentagon said they are aware of thousands. Thousands. Think about that. Thousands. I don't know if that's low thousands. I don't know if that's high thousands. But anytime you get up to the point of 1,000, we're talking like a battalion plus size formation worth of people in the military who are actively saying, hey, if I don't like what you have to say, I can go on the offense against you, or I can encourage others to go on the offense against you. And literally, you deserve to die. If you get a bullet to the neck, well, that's your problem. You said something I didn't like. You said something you shouldn't have said. And that goes against everything that we swear to. And so, and I also think for every one we see, there's got to be several more who are just smart enough not to say it.
Oh, yeah. So, I've been on this. We lost Boone Cutler, who was co-author with General Flynn of the Citizen's Guide to Fifth Generation Warfare. And I'm going to make it I'm making it a point to talk about these things in the terms of that handbook these days, and I'll make some more references to it throughout the show, especially in the last segment. But Fifth Generation Warfare, it's all about psychological influence operations, psychological operations, and non-kinetic indoctrination that leads a population to turn against itself, isn't it?
It really is. And when you look outside, a lot of this comes from external influence. Like Marxism did not take hold in the United States because we all as Americans decided in the 1950s that it would be good for us. Mm-hmm. This has been an information war that has been pushed within us. I saw an interesting analysis a couple of years ago about how Marx in his day and his time was roundly rejected by those who were around him. His ideas were looked down upon as they should have been. He was looked down upon as he should have been. But when the Bolsheviks came to power in Russia during the 1917 revolution, it was at that point in time you started seeing his doctrines put into the academy. And of course, that has just grown and grown and grown. And so this is an attack that has started ideologically from outside the borders of this nation to turn the people of this nation against each other. And you have to admit it's a smart play, because what nation, especially after World War II, what nation wants to face the American people in an open battlefield, tank on tank warfare? No one in their right mind wants to do that. And so the way you get in is using a Trojan horse idea, and you come in and you divide the people from within, and you make the people decide that their nation isn't worth defending, that their nation is reprehensible, that their ancestors are bad. And we've seen the academy completely taken over by that. We've seen the majority of governmental institutions taken over by that. And the military was kind of the last lone standing bulwark for many, many, many decades. And we saw the Obama administration therefore targeted it and made it a priority institution for takeover. And sadly, they have largely succeeded. And even though we have a new administration and we have strong leadership in the Pentagon now, a lot of men and women who I admire, the fact of the matter is the rot is deep. The Pentagon is a big ship with a very small rudder. And this is going to take a concerted all-of-nation effort to turn around. And it's not just the responsibility of the leaders in the Pentagon. It's not just the responsibility of the president and the Congress. It is the responsibility of every single American.
Absolutely right, man. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll see a clip from Matt Lohmeyer, who's currently the Undersecretary of the Air Force, who was fired from his squadron, left the Air Force because he wrote a book called Irresistible Revolution, just talking about the Marxism taking a hold in the Department of Defense and the Department of the Air Force and telling the truth. We'll be right back with Dr. Chase Spears.
The businessman from Texas that spent years trying to bring the perfect red heifers to Israel is coming to speak in Collierville, Tennessee, outside of Memphis, on Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. They now have sacrificed one of those red heifers. There it is burning. They've now gained 10 gallons of ashes. Why do they need this? Well, the Old Testament, Numbers chapter 19, says that for the purification ceremony, for their temporary tabernacle or full-time temple, they need the ashes of a perfect red heifer. This is the first time this has happened in over 2,000 years. The story is going global. It's highly controversial. In fact, there's even a connection between the attacks on Israel on October 7th and these 5 red heifers. Come and hear him speak live in person, Friday night, October 3rd, Saturday, October 4th. Full details, worldviewstore.com, and to get your tickets, worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com.
So you mentioned diversity, equity, and inclusion being, a theme that's taught extensively in the military now. This doesn't seem to many to be problematic. It seems, in fact, to be quite laudable. What's the issue with this?
It can seem like a laudable goal. The issue, I think, was well stated by Carol Swain, who recently and several times has said that the diversity, equity, and inclusion industry is steeped in critical race theory, which is rooted in Marxist ideology, and that's 100% correct. The trouble with that is Marxist ideology, and a particular aspect of Marxist ideology that I focus on in both my writings and in understanding this issue, is the oppressor versus the oppressed narrative that is developed by Marx and Engels in their 1848 Communist Manifesto. When you start to lump people either into economic class stratifications or into race identity groups and insist that one group, by virtue of their identity, is inherently an oppressor, and in our race dialogue discussions, that is the white group, and in another group, based on their racial identity, is an oppressed and victimized group of people, then you start to breed division and animosity among and between those groups of people and breed distrust. Now, critical race theory does exactly what I've just described. It has capitalized on race essentialism and race division in our dialogue and redefined terms that are a large part of the diversity, equity, and inclusion industry. And their redefined terms and vocabulary are now showing up in our military training sessions. Instead of unifying people and helping us solve some of the problems or issues we're currently facing, it actually plants new ones, and it causes greater division. And I've seen that as an active duty service member. I've seen it as a commander in our armed forces.
To the Rob Maness Show, it's More War Monday, unfortunately, and we're talking about revolutionaries in the ranks. That's a hashtag on X, folks. Revolutionaries in the ranks. Go follow it. The volunteers that created that hashtag are identifying military members that have celebrated or are celebrating Charlie Kirk being publicly executed for exercising free speech, for his words. And that clip from formerly Lieutenant Colonel and now Undersecretary of the Air Force Matt Lohmeyer is from years ago, at the very beginning of his book release, and the troubles like being removed from his squadron command, having to leave the Air Force before retirement, and he gave us all the warning signs. And now spring forward to 2025, and you see that critical theory has been extrapolated beyond race into the gay community and now into the trans ideology community, and a group called Antifa, short for anti-fascist, here in the United States, has now been declared a domestic terrorist organization, but they are actually training trans individuals using military veterans in many cases to do the training, to do these attacks that you're seeing, like what is reasonably suspected in Charlie Kirk's public execution. And my guest today is retired U.S. Army Major and Doctor Chase Spears, who has been one of those volunteers that helped develop this hashtag Revolutionaries in the Ranks. And Chase, you know, it's hard for me to believe that that's 4 years ago. We saw that. And it doesn't seem that anything that we've been able to do has had enough effect. And now we have folks like Matt, you mentioned, folks that are in leadership positions now in the Department of Defense that you and I both have high confidence in these individuals. But can they get this eradicated is the question that's in my mind at this point, considering the breadth and the scope and the depth of this indoctrination.
They absolutely can. And I want to be very clear. It will not be easy. But look at what the military was pre-Obama era, when it was predominantly a conservative institution. And when I say conservative, I don't mean everyone was wearing red hats and cheering about being Republicans. What I mean is it was an institution that understood its purpose to defend, to protect, to conserve America, the constitutional ideals. And that's why it was targeted. And the Obama administration, followed by the Biden administration, made it a priority institution to revolutionize. And they put their people in it. They went in very early on and dismissed people who they knew would disagree. We had the whole COVID purge of over 8,000 military members kicked out. And that doesn't even begin to capture the probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of others like myself who departed much earlier than they planned, or other constitutionally minded Americans who chose not to join, right? And so this could be done to shift it to the left. It was a Herculean effort. It was focused. It was determined. It was long-term. And so what we have to guard against as we work to recover is any notion that we can just change a policy and it will be fixed, change a base name and it will be fixed. No, this will require the exact amount of effort that the Obama and the Biden administration put in, and it will take the same number of years. This is going to be a long, concerted task for leadership at the Defense Department to be forced to either say, look, we are going to reject these left-leaning neo-Marxist doctrines that say America is bad and that there's an oppressor and oppressee class, and that is all that matters, and that we must seek this social justice. We have to get the military leaders to either say, look, we're going to reject that and then get on board with conserving and defending America, or help them to find an exit. But what we can't do is come in and say, well, we have our players in head positions now, and we've changed some policies, and just expect that that will fix itself. This is going to be a long-term effort.
Yeah, and it's very difficult because when you look at concepts like DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, it seems on the surface to be, and Matt and the interviewer there touched on this a little bit. Matt touched on it. He DEI seems like it's a good step forward. To add to equal opportunity, equality of opportunity, treating people the same regardless of their race, and those kind of things. But in fact, it further encourages and creates division by going away from a merit-based hiring process, a merit-based performance rating process, a merit-based promotion process, and raising people up that aren't always the best qualified, just based on an immutable characteristic like skin color.
Yes, on its surface, it sounds good. Why wouldn't we want people who have diverse skill sets, diverse mindsets, diverse talents? Why wouldn't we want people to come from all walks of life and come together? Kind of the concept of e pluribus unum, out of many, one. And that's why they use that branding. DEI is a very deceptive branding. Look at what equity means. Equity means equality of outcomes. It means that no matter what you contribute, you have automatically earned success, regardless of whether you actually achieve success. And this is the play that they've made. This is a psychological shell game. When you look at the fact that it's actually rooted in an ideology that seeks to divide. Diversity. People automatically say, well, don't we want diversity? Isn't diversity good? It's one of those terms kind of like for the public good. Don't we want things for the public good? But what it does in actuality is rather than saying, look, we are a diverse body as it is, we have men, we have women, we have all different ethnicities, we have all different life stories, all different backgrounds, all different talents, and we come together. That's what actual diversity is. But diversity within the DEI construct is about highlighting the differences and placing a chisel between people who have the same ideals and saying, well, now I don't know if I can trust you. And Matt Lomar actually even referred to that in his book. He tells a story about how one day one of his subordinates came in and said something to the effect of, you know what, I always believed that I was doing good and I always believed that I could trust in the service. But once I got exposed to DEI, I began to realize that what I knew was wrong and that I am really oppressed. Well, what did that do to help the readiness of the unit? It did nothing. It divided. And that's what DEI does every single time. That's what it's designed to do, is to divide people from each other. And that's why it's absolutely so corrosive and such a threat in the military. When you look to your right and your left, you're supposed to trust that that person has you. It doesn't matter where they came from. It doesn't matter their skin tone. It doesn't matter their religious belief. They are a brother or sister in arms, and they have you and you have them. Diversity, equity, inclusion makes you question that. It makes you question if you can trust who you can trust. And it has sown such division in the ranks. And I mean, I could just talk the whole rest of the hour about the division it has sown and the fact that people are afraid to talk to each other. How do you build trust if you're afraid to talk to the person on the left or your right?
Well, how do you go to war? You know, I've talked to infantrymen from World War II a bit. And when I asked them what they were fighting for, to a man, they said I was fighting for my buddies. To a man. So how do you achieve a combat focus so you can be combat mission effective and win, like what we're charged to do, when you have soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, Coast Guardsmen that can't trust each other? I mean, I've had to put my life in other people's hands. I don't know how many times in that profession. You know what I mean? And when you listen to folks like Laura Loomer, Matt, you, other folks that are talking about this today, and you think about it. I mean, Matt was just in his book. He was talking about the training in the uniform side, the military side, but one of the clips that you guys have uncovered was a Department of Defense education system employee, a civilian in charge of educating the children of military personnel and government personnel overseas. And they believe that it was the right thing to do for Charlie Kirk to be publicly executed. When you have that level of indoctrination and infiltration and foothold of this stuff into an organization as broad and deep as the Department of Defense, how do we get at that? And do we need a whole of government or a whole of society approach is the question in my mind when I listen to folks like you, Doc, because it's so deep. I mean, it's already not too deep. I think Laura's, when she said it, or she thinks we're too far gone. I think we're still able to get out of this, but we've got to have a very specific strategy connected to executable plans that look at our society as a whole through the different stovepipes, I guess, of the federal government, at least at the beginning, but all the way down to the local government level. This is really big and dangerous. And unfortunately, it looks like the military was the last institution to have a foothold established. Now, they haven't got us all, obviously, but they've got a lot. And we got to take another break here. When we come back, we're going to see a clip from an Army captain. You're going to be shocked. I'll be right back with Dr. Chase.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
My name is Captain Dylan Blaha, and this message is for all U.S. military service members, especially every general and admiral meeting with Pete Hegseth on Tuesday. I'm a 13-year U.S. Army veteran who served in Afghanistan and wrote war plans while stationed at U.S. Army Europe. This morning, Donald Trump directed Pete Hegseth to deploy the U.S. military to Portland, Oregon. This is the latest illegal attempt to normalize the use of the military in U.S. cities. He authorized the military to use, quote, full force. This is authoritarianism. This is fascism. The U.S. military is not a law enforcement force, and all federalized service members must abide by the Passa Comitatus Act. All members of the United States military must disobey illegal orders. I was just following orders is not a valid defense against war crimes. Grow a spine and stand up for your fellow Americans. Otherwise, you are complicit in this fascist takeover. We're running out of time.
Welcome back to More War Monday here on the Rob Maness Show, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And I think my live audience is speechless. Usually they have a question or two the first half hour. My guest today is retired U.S. Army officer Dr. Chase Spears, who did public affairs work. I mean, he's an expert in messaging and communicating what the messaging needed to be to the troops, especially, and to society, when the armed forces and the commands that he was representing needed to get their message out. That's what Chase's job was. Chase, this young guy, he says he's a captain. I'll just caveat it. There's some reporting out there that he's no longer in the Army. But you know, one of the things I found interesting about that clip is he weaves correct ideas in with the wrong ideas to make it seem like what he's talking about is what they were trying to do during the COVID order unlawful mandate, which is push back against it. But everybody I've ever talked to, and I've interviewed many, as you know, that said the COVID order was unlawful and acted on it, did it within what the rules they were given to be able to do it. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
This is not that, is it?
It is not. It is not. And I will give the captain or former captain. I don't know which one it is. I haven't researched him enough yet to know. But I'll give him some credit for being clever. He weaved narratives, some of which on a matter of principle, I find some agreement with. I also do not want it to be normalized that we have military units that are required to safeguard American streets, because I would like to think that local law enforcement would do their job, and that local magistrates, local county attorneys, chiefs of police, governors, city and county council members would take this seriously. But when you have lower level magistrates who refuse to step in and conduct their governmental role, someone else has to step in to provide security. And it is absolutely constitutional and within the lawful rights of the president to activate members of the National Guard to assist law enforcement. This has been done so many times. people like this captain would have you believe that this is unprecedented. It's never happened before. We've never, ever, 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 ever in American history seen National Guard members activated to help serve the people of their own state or of neighboring states. And if that's the case, then I think Ray Nagin might have something to say about the use of the Guard and even federal troops to help New Orleans after Katrina. And there's so many other examples. So, I mean, he is clever in some of the narratives that he uses, but he is misusing them. He is misappropriating them. They love to use that term fascist when they have no idea of what it actually means, and they haven't looked at any of the historical data behind what that was. The bottom line is this is what happens when you have local governments who refuse to do their jobs. Well, a higher level magistrate has to step in and do that job. But even more troubling is he is tying legal activities to unlawful orders. And I go back in my mind to 2020 through about 2024, when the military was pushing so hard on the shot mandate, which we knew was illegal at the time. And many of us said, hey, this is illegal. And we were told, shut up and color. You don't know what you're talking about. And suddenly, now that Donald Trump's in office, everyone suddenly is an expert in what is or is not a lawful constitutional order. And so that's the danger. And that's what people like him are trying to do, is they're trying to separate the military from their command structure. And it's for a very partisan purpose. And it's something that I view as very dangerous because like I would hope most Americans, I don't want it to be normalized that we have military units on American streets. But at the end of the day, let's also look and ask, what is the point and purpose of the military? The Army's motto is "This will defend." Well, what are we defending? Were we defending America in Iraq? Were we defending America in Afghanistan? I mean, having been a veteran of the conflict in Afghanistan and seeing the way it ended, I kind of often will say, if the Army was doing such a good job of protecting America, then why do I have to go through a terrorist screening every time I want to get on an airplane if we're really so protected and we're really so safe? That, at the end of the day, is the purpose of a military, is to defend the nation. And I think we've gotten far too comfortable being willing to ship our military forces overseas to protect America, allegedly by planting democracies that immediately fall apart overseas. And yet we boo and hiss when we say, hey, let's actually use them to face down a present threat here. And make no mistake, Antifa is a clear and present danger on American soil. And if the local magistrate won't deal with it, then I'm glad the Trump administration is willing to.
Yeah, it has been a clear and present danger on American soil for many, many years. And we've all been we military types have been talking about it and trying to give warnings about it, much to no ears listening until recently. So I'm glad that we have a commander in chief that gets it, and that he's got people briefing him that are giving him the facts. Well, we've got a hand up in the audience now. Let's go ahead and take that question. Go ahead. Shell is our host over there.
We have Buckster, sir.
Hey, Shell Colonel, Dr. Spear. I was just curious. There's going to be a time when administrations are going to change again, and I know that military laws and rules are pretty clear, but what do you see or as a solution for the future, sir, to stop them from what I call the wimpification of the armed forces again, and stop some of this craziness that we saw under the last administration? Is there a way to codify something to prevent this from happening again?
Thanks for the question. I would like to say that there is some solution that we can put in place where this will never happen again. But that would be unrealistic. What we have to do now is to put the military in such a good position, in such a constitutionally strong position, that it will be hard work to be undone. The Obama administration was able to undo over 2 centuries of military tradition in roughly a decade. And that's why it's so important for the American people to be judicious about who they elect as the commander in chief. That's why right now, while the sun is shining, we have to go through, and just like Obama did with getting rid of generals who would not go along with his progressive agenda, The current administration needs to go through and similarly get rid of generals and senior officers who do not understand and will not truly serve the Constitution of the United States. Now, if the White House should flip in 4 or 8 or 12 years, whatever that may be, could the other side then undo it all? Yes, they can. But our job is to make it as hard as possible for them by ensuring the military is as strong and oriented towards constitutional posture right now as we possibly can.
Yeah, that's a great way to see it, Chase. One of the things that's concerned me for several years, and I left the Air Force in December of 2011, so not too long ago, and well into the Obama administration. But I didn't see any signs of this, and those of us that were colonels, looking out to the future promotion boards, et cetera, and seeing what was going on, you couldn't really tell that the president and his team were purging folks, but they were. We see with hindsight they were, because of the way the outcomes that we're seeing today. And senior officers used to be the bulwark for the Constitution against that type of activity. I mean, it's a long tradition. My favorite painting in the rotunda at the U.S. Capitol is George Washington giving his military commission back to the Congress. I mean, that is, and not becoming a king or a dictator. And that's how far this tradition goes back. And we were expected, as I grew up as an officer, I was trained and educated by my mentors that I was expected to, if I got faced with an order that was clearly unlawful, to voice my opinion. And if it wasn't fixed, that I either had to implement the order or resign publicly. In most cases, I don't recommend people resigning quietly. Resign publicly if you're leaving early, folks, over this kind of issue. But I was always confident that our senior leaders, our generals and admirals, thought the same way, but they no longer do they?
Unfortunately, they don't. Right now, what we have among the majority of the general officer class is a group of careerists, of men and women who are so sold out to keeping their social status, who are so sold out to keeping their power, the prestige that comes with that office, because Americans are trained to love generals. It's part of who we are. It's part of what we do. And there's a lot that comes with that rank. There's a lot that comes with that office, particularly from a social status view. And they would not let that go for anything today. I mean, the ones who are principled, they left. I was told a story. I admit I was not in the room, but I believe it credible. I was told a story that when General Mark Milley was Chief of Staff of the Army during the Obama years, that the directive came down from the White House. Look, bottom line is, it doesn't matter what you think. We're going to open up the military ranks to people claiming transgender ideology and identity. And the story that I was told goes that General Milley met with the generals across the Army and said, this is coming down the pike. This is what the administration wants. You can either get on board with this mandate, or you can go ahead and retire. And those who had principle, they retired. Those who wanted their prestige, those who wanted their status, those who wanted to continue being general officers, they stayed. And the military has, over the intervening years, groomed leaders who would play right along with that. The General Officer Corps picks colonels who are just like them to replace them. And so we sadly have hardly any remaining generals who truly have any kind of adherence to principle. The majority of them are aligned solely to self-interest above all else.
Yeah, and it's very unfortunate. Tomorrow there's a meeting between all the generals and admirals that hold command positions around the world and Secretary of Defense Hegseth. And it's my understanding President Trump's going to be in that meeting too. So with the Commander-in-Chief and the Secretary of Defense, the two men that they report to, and I don't know anything about the meeting, but I'm hoping that it's a come to Jesus meeting, and not in the religious sense, although I love that Pete is out there exercising his religion and witnessing for Christ at every opportunity. But the fact that there are policies that are being put in place and orders being given by the president and the secretary that aren't being implemented aggressively, and they're being slow rolled, and it's obvious they are, requires that a meeting like this happens. And I hope they have a discussion about this very thing, because there are a lot of resistors that are Marxist based in the ranks. And we'll talk a little bit more about that up here in the next segment after this break, and dive into fifth generation warfare and the fight against Antifa and how that relates to all of this with Dr. Chase Spears. I'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
This was being treated as a single murder. It's not a single murder. This is not a single murder of a great man. There's a vast conspiracy in back of this. Antifa needs to be designated as a domestic terrorist organization. And hey, if you want to make it international terrorist, there's plenty of evidence of that. In fact, it came out of Europe. The trans part of this is a subset of that. That is also a conspiracy, an active conspiracy, a terrorist organization. Needs to be investigated. The New York Post has got has a great piece up. We'll put it up in a little while as we discuss this. It's now being, the law enforcement is now focused, and there was a lot of law enforcement that was fighting this. They want to treat it as a simple murder. It's not a simple murder. This is far deeper and far more malignant. And that's why in the next 2 weeks, to make sure we go after that, and any foreign money that came in, any foreign influence that came in from the Chinese Communist Party to Soros to others, Arabella, all of it. They have 3 levels. They have the first level of the Antifa and the transgender radicals, or the kind of the foot soldiers, right? Then they have a second level. You're going to be shocked. That second level is made up of what's infiltrated the military. No, it's not white nationalism or white extremism, extremist politics. That's what they try to sell under Biden's regime. You have members of the military that are radicalized. You've seen this in some of the posts about Charlie Kirk, but you have many that are in there deep, that are training and working. You heard Tage Gill, that are working with Antifa and training Antifa. And then you have the top level, and that's the people that are trying to destroy this country, the financiers in the networks of globalist financiers and others that are using this to foment a civil war here in the United States of America.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday. Unfortunately, we still have that theme on Mondays because the war has come to us. It's very clear now. And it's a Marxist, a red-green alliance-based war. It's a globalist, one-world government believer war. It's a non-government organization war. It's a war where your mind, your cognitive space is the battlefield and the battle terrain that has to be understood. And that's under fifth generation warfare. And folks, I highly recommend you go out and get General Flynn and Boone Cutler's. God bless them. We lost Boone just days ago to a sudden death incident. And we have to read that handbook. Get that handbook on fifth generation warfare that those two great Americans wrote, because it lays all this stuff out. And what Steve Bannon was just talking about are the facts. It's all supported by the facts. And my guest today is Dr. Chase Spears, retired U.S. Army major, former public affairs officer, so is very familiar with this battle space of the mind. The battle space of the mind. Public affairs officers are experts in this type of warfare, where the messaging and the influencing is primarily non-kinetic and through all of the sensors that we have and that the enemy now has, the adversary has, whether they're a state actor or a non-state actor, doesn't matter, but they have access to all of this capability that is acting on that cognitive space, the battlefield terrain of fifth generation warfare. And Chase, nothing that Steve said there caught me off guard or surprised me. I mean, and I've interviewed you before. We said, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, you and I were on the same page that when Biden was saying there were extremists in the ranks, that we were like, no, I mean, if they're there, they're very minuscule numbers and have no ability to have an influence. And in my case, I was speaking about the white supremacist extremists or religious extremists like Christian extremists or pro-life extremists. But really, I didn't expect this level of extremism in the ranks, especially such a level that they're bold enough to put it in public in a very consistent and methodical way. Are Steve and I wrong?
No, I was wrong too. I actually recently wrote a piece that appeared at Red State, pulling a mea culpa. When you look at the preponderance of much of my work and my speaking, I have been a harsh critic of former Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin's assertion that the military just has this pandemic of extremists in it. Now, what he meant by that was, if you lean in any way conservative, you're an extremist, because under the Biden administration, if you're pro-life or if you were Catholic, you recited the Latin Mass, you might potentially be an extremist. And that's the direction they were looking for. And there was this whole 60-day stand down across the entire Department of Defense. Don't tell me a Secretary of Defense doesn't have the authority to force a major look within across the Defense Department, because it was done recently. And there was even a major study conducted by the Rand Corporation, which said essentially this was all wasted time and all wasted money. There is not some radical right-wing extremist problem in the military. I think they may have found like a handful. What they overlooked completely was the radical left-wing extremism. And let's be really clear about what I mean by that. Again, I'm not saying because you vote blue. I'm saying when you believe and will openly assert that conservative Americans like Charlie Kirk deserve to be assassinated because you do not like what they say, that is textbook extremism. There was even a policy put into place by the Army last June during the Biden administration. It was signed by Secretary Christine Wormuth, who was Biden's appointee as Secretary of the Army. And it very clearly states, if you advocate for violence to achieve a political end, you are engaging in extremism. And that is exactly what we saw by so many service members who, and I'm just going to, for your audience who may not be aware, I want to read just a few of these. I mean, this was the first one I told you about, Colonel Janelle Jeffrey. Sometimes we reap what we sow. That's all. Looking now at a Army National Guard captain and a civilian who works for NCIS, Ryan Jack, he wrote, dude, this is about Charlie Kirk. Dude made a career out of inciting violence and political unrest, but him dying by a bullet is too much. LOL. He goes on and says he was asking God to strike down his enemies in the same uniform as me. LOL. Going over to the Navy, there was a reserve commander and a woman who actually works for the Navy as a civilian, Sandra Wyman, who wrote online of Kirk. He was a vile, disgusting POS. You know what that means. And he got what he thought others deserved. Looking over, another Navy petty officer, Mickey Smith, wrote, all right, let's wrap this Kirk talk up. Y'all have given him more time than deserved by talking about him. He lived by the sword and he died by the sword. His chickens came home to roost. It's sad to say, but if he would have died in a school shooting, y'all would have moved on by now. May he rest in whatever place he is. This is just, I could fill an entire day going through these quotes. These are uniformed military members saying that if you're a conservative, you deserve to die. This your chickens coming home to roost. What impact does that have to conservative military members right now? If your commander, if your supervisor says people who think like you deserve to die, how do you serve under that? What does that do for our military readiness? What does that do for our trust? And that's why I'm so dogged, and several others are so dogged about this. It's not that I have any desire to be thought police. Rob, this has been like the full-time unpaid job I never asked for. It hurts. I do not like seeing this. I'm tired of doing it. But if we won't point out the fact that there's a problem that has to be addressed, who else will? And I love the Republic. I love the nation. I love the military. I want to be able to cheerlead for it. And that means sometimes you have to call fouls when certain people are not living up to their oaths. And we have seen far too much of that. Lloyd Austin said there was an extremism problem. I said there wasn't. Turns out I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, how does Rand Corporation miss it? That one really puzzles me, because they're pretty good at being objective. Maybe our process there and our capability there is not as good as I think it is, and I need to rethink that myself. Chase, are any of these folks that y'all have identified in command positions currently? And is it the Department of War taking any action?
I do know that they're looking at these pretty closely. So I've seen news reporting that says the Department of War has suspended and is investigating roughly a dozen service members. Now, that was a few days ago. I'm sure the number is higher. There was this one officer, Major Guillermo Muniz. He was commanding the 22nd Mobile Public Affairs Detachment at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I can confirm that since he posted, his post was in line with the ones that I just read. He has since been relieved of command. And there are others that I have put word out about who maybe they weren't in a command position, but they were in supervisory positions. Most of the time, if you're an officer or a non-commissioned officer, you're going to be in some level of supervision. And so I do know that things are being done, but I don't know at what scale. And again, with all due respect to the secretary and the people running the Defense Department, I know that they've got a lot else going on. But I'm not satisfied with the news that we've gotten so far. I suspect they're doing much more than they're letting on publicly, but in a lot more needs to be known. Like when I was in the Army, we had what was called the Uniform Code of Military Justice Board, the UCMJ board, and you'd walk into the unit and you'd see the Article 15s pasted in it. And they might black out the name and the social security number, but you got to see such and such person of such and such rank did this thing, and here's what we did to them. We need something like that on grand scale so the public can see, hey, DOW is taking this seriously and getting after it.
Yeah, I have said many times, and I'll repeat it here, radical transparency is required for the American people to reestablish our confidence in our institutions. And if we can't do it in the Department of War, have radical transparency, then the hope that we can reestablish that confidence of the American people in any of these institutions dwindles over time. So I hope that I know they're on it. I saw Secretary Hegseth do a post on X about it early on after you guys started tracking this with that hashtag. Revolutionaries in the ranks, folks, follow that hashtag and help these guys get the word out. Like Chase just said, they're unpaid. I do have a little political action committee that I'm looking at trying to raise a little money to throw towards the volunteer effort to help them out. But that takes time. And you can donate at gatorpack.com, by the way, if you want to do that. But we've got to make sure that we are supporting their effort and that they get more aggressive on this. Chase, where can folks find your podcast, find your spine, and everything else that you're doing before I let you go?
Oh, thanks so much. I am at Dr. Chase Spears. That's my handle on all my social media presences. If you're looking for me anywhere online that I am, at Dr. Chase Spears, we'll get you there. And you can also listen to the Finding Your Spine podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. So whether you're an Apple listener or a Spotify listener or any other podcast listening service that you use, Come on out. We have great conversations with people who have been willing to take courageous stands and pay the price and come out through the other end with their integrity intact. And so I try to encourage people that they can do the same thing by talking to people who have done it.
Well, thank you for doing that, sir. Thank you for your considered service to America. God bless you. We'll be praying for you. Keep up the fight, folks, and get in there and help them out. Remember the hashtag Revolutionaries in the ranks. We got to find every one of them, get them identified, and get the situation corrected. Tomorrow, it's Training Tuesday. My guest will be Dinesh D'Souza. We got him for 3/4 of an hour to talk about his new movie, and it's going to be fantastic, The Dragon's Prophecy. And if you don't believe about the Red-Green Alliance, better come listen to Dinesh talk to me about that new movie tomorrow, right here on World YouTube.